All right, welcome back. Well, today we're joined by a man with many caps, Prince Adetokunbo Kayode, CON. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, former Minister of Defense, and he is presently the President, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, good morning, Chamberlain. Thank you for having us.
Okay, let's start off with this matter that is out there in the news, the P&ID case involving Nigeria. Clearly, when that judgment came through on Friday, it elicited a lot of reactions, and it goes back several years, actually, and you may know a thing or two about it. Well, when you then saw and read the recent judgment, what were your thoughts at the time?
Well, I think there's a great reprieve for us. It gives us the opportunity to now present maybe our own side of the story, give us opportunity to have a second chance to present our case properly, and hopefully we'll get some reprieve because the impact of the award will be devastating. Will have devastating effect on our economy, and unfortunately for us, we have not gotten any iota of value from that contract. So that is where all over the world it is. The whole scenario is viewed with some form of skepticism that something definitely not correct. Something is not right there. So we have a chance now to seriously present our case, and I wish Nigeria luck. But something I take away from this is, and this is not only in Nigeria, in all over Africa, we need to take the issue of domestication of our commercial litigation very seriously. And we need to domesticate arbitration in Africa, in Nigeria especially. And at the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, we have set up the Dispute Resolution Center so that unless it is absolutely necessary, we should do all our litigation, all our dispute resolution, especially in commercial matters here in Nigeria and maybe in Africa. And secondly, we should also take litigation very seriously. When somebody takes you to court or to arbitration, you cannot be casual about it. You must be very serious about it. You must present your facts. Anytime the matter comes up in court or in the tribunal, you must be there. See, it's very, very important because sometimes the rules are not really very humane. The rules are very strict and rigid. And if you don't present your case as and when you may suffer seriously, as in this case. But we are hopeful now that something, at least something slightly better than what happened before will transpire right now.
So as it stands now, yes, we did approach the court to give us more time. So because, I mean, there were those who led to the impression that, oh, finally, we've got this reprieve, so we're off the hooks. No. So tell us, are we off the hook, or this just gives us more time to see whether or not we will pay, or you think that as things stand, given that judgment, some of the comments from that judgment, it looks as though we will get the clear eventually?
Yes, we have a reprieve, we have a chance, we have extension of time within which to challenge the award in the arbitration. We are not off the hook. In fact, the work is just about to start because we really need to present a strong grounds to challenge the award. Not only the ruling of the award itself, but the award of damages, because there are two different things. So we have the chance to do this. And this is something we must take very, very seriously. But from what has already been presented in court, we are obviously on the way to doing a good job of it, because I can see that a lot of effort was put in before we could convince the court that, yes, they should give us this second chance. So it is not yet uhuru, as they say, but we are on the way. But we must take it very, very seriously. The real work is about to start, because we still have to present a case to challenge the award as well as the award of damages.
Now, when you said earlier, in your first comment about this whole thing, you said, from your observation, it seemed that some things were not right. What were some of those things that you observed?
Well, as I said, the first thing is that we have this tendency to take at least from what we are seeing now, reviewing, going back the years, we have this tendency to take our arbitration, especially arbitration involving government, outside Nigeria. I mean, it doesn't add up. And what we have done, I haven't seen this challenge, what we have done is to, as much as possible, try to domesticate our arbitration here. Anytime government or the serious big companies or whoever you are involved in an arbitration, we should endeavor to domesticate it here. We have in Lagos, we have Lagos Court of International Arbitration, we have Lagos Court of Arbitration. In Abuja, we have the Dispute Resolution Center. And this is a chance for us to domesticate our arbitration here. That is one. And this, two, we don't need to be exporting our arbitration. I'm not saying that the fact that you are doing arbitration in London does not mean you will not get judgment. But it just makes sense that we should domesticate arbitration. That's one of the things I've observed. Two, I think that unless the Attorney General gives special dispensation, I think every arbitration should be in Nigeria. I mean, this is just a follow-up to the last point I made. And the second key issue is that government should take litigation and arbitration, any form of proceedings that goes to determine the legal status of a relationship. Government should take it more seriously. The provision of documents, support for the legal team is very, very key. We should take it more seriously, and I'm sure we have learned bitter lessons from our experience of the P&ID case, and going forward, we know that we must take litigation very seriously. There are quite a number of litigations and arbitrations all over the place now. Some of them by default because of whatever tardiness in the process of defense of some of these matters. And many of them because documents are not made available. Even if they're made available, the necessary follow-up is not done. So we must take our any proceedings very, very seriously. There are serious matters that can really come to really hurt this country or hurt all of us as individuals.
Just so one thing before...
things I think that we need to, going forward, yes.
Yeah, a number of issues you have already raised which we want to come to, but let me ask you quickly, is there anything wrong with the process from 2006, 2010 until now that could have helped us avoid all of this that we are having right now? The situation that we have found ourselves. Is there anything wrong with the process in its entirety?
Well, when you talk about process, okay, let's break it down this way. There was a change of government in 2015, and there was change of offices. New Attorney General came in. He needs to be fully briefed. Of course, when there's a change of government, change of party, you don't necessarily get that full handing over, and a proper briefing. So definitely, the change of government may have affected what really went on here. That is one. Two, generally, there's that general tardiness about litigation, especially when it relates to public institutions. There's just that general tardiness about it. Thirdly, you see, if you concede to a particular procedure, you must understand the dynamics of that procedure. For instance, arbitration is final and is binding, and there's no appeal. And There are timelines for doing different things. So you cannot just treat it like you treat litigation, where there's opportunity for appeal, where you can filibuster maybe. Arbitration is slightly different. So we really understanding the processes is very, very important, and taking it very seriously. And finally, you see, arbitration, like other ADR, form of ADR, is now basic all over the world. It's the new way. I mean, in fact, it's the way that everybody now accepts to handle commercial dispute resolution. So we must reorientate ourselves about understanding of arbitration and the implication. And as I said, also seek to domesticate it so that we can all, because for instance, if you put all your, in Nigeria, most of government-related arbitration are done either in Paris or in London or somewhere else. It costs money. You need to get a visa, for instance, to go to London to do it. What if you couldn't get a visa? And it costs money to move people up and down. So why can't we do it here in Abuja or do it in Lagos, which would be easier for us? And I do not think that based on the doctrine of party equality, you can really, if you are the key person, like in the P&ID case, there's no reason why that arbitration should not have been in Abuja or in Lagos. But if you consider to put it in London, then you know that it costs money to go there. It costs money to move men and material up there. And sometimes you don't get your visa, as I said, or you don't get money to go, then you don't move on with the case. But there's a reprieve, again, because now we're doing virtual arbitration, so you could actually sit down here and do your arbitration online, whether the arbitration is based in London or so. So
all right.
gradually things are improving, but these are some of the things that I can observe, yes.
All right, if you could just shed some further light. I mean, when you talk about change of government or change of offices and documents not coming to people at the right time, you were in the thick of things at that time too, when the former AGF left and you came in, and at that point, some of these issues also came up. So are you trying to tell us something? Were you handed documents? Did people take documents away from you? No, what can you tell us? How did we get here?
Chamberlain, it's good for you to get your timelines. I was Attorney General for a very short period of time in 2010. I never heard anything about this matter. I don't know anything about it. You know that if you look at the timing, I left. I was there for a very, very short period in 2010, early 2010. I don't know anything about it. But the point I'm making is this. Generally in Nigeria, when there's a change of government, we have not developed this process of proper handing over. Okay, when there's change of government, especially a change of party in government, the old, as they said, the old dispensation is swept away and a new one comes in. So sweeping away sometimes could mean that there will be no appropriate information being given to the new person, or so on and so forth. I'm just looking at it from that point of view, but I know that definitely the P&D matter did not show the best of us, and I think we can do better going forward. But the important is to learn, to pick lessons from what has happened, because there will always be the cases, whether as government or as individuals or as institutions, we will always have disputes. So these matters will always come up. So pick lessons from it, and going forward, learn that when you have matters in court or in arbitration, you must take them very seriously, and you must. But first thing is that endeavor to get the best of it by domesticating it here, so that it will reduce your cost and the challenges of conducting.
If I can just ask you this one question, if I can just one moment, if I can just ask you this, there is a civil service, all right, and they are supposed to make sure that there is a continuum from government to government, irrespective of who is in office. There isn't supposed to be any such a problem as to say, okay, this matter got stalled because we had a change of government. There should be a system where, even if it's an executive summary or something, should that be, and should change of government be such a problem in a situation that we have, where we have systems that are working effectively? Should there be such a problem?
Well, you've painted an ideal situation. This is what we must aspire to. But we know, in fact, with or without change of government, our civil service is not that efficient. Our processes are not that efficient. And we don't need to deceive ourselves about this. We must continue to strive to get, not continue to strive, we must get the system to be smooth, to be working, and that flow must always be there. We must make sure we have that flow. But the civil service that I know, and that we all know, that still exists up to this moment, is not that efficient. With or without, even without change of government, you may still have issues locating documents, locating files, and so on and so forth. So, and I'm sure you know this. You know this. The system, and that is why people are now pushing to have technology, so that to put in technology into the processes of running the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy as it is now is not that efficient for you to insist that, because with or without change of government, there's a continuum. In theory, yes, there should be a continuum, but in fact, in reality, it doesn't work that way. Things are not really as efficient as they ought to be. That's the truth. So let us keep our eye on that and continue to strive to make sure that the system becomes better.
Right. So as we learn lessons and pick out discrepancies from this experience in the past, I'd like you to give us an insight really into the possibilities moving forward. So in the eventuality that Nigeria wins the case of fraud, that case of fraud is proven, what would that implication be for the company and for Nigeria also?
Well, my hope is that we'll be able to put in our points in respect of challenging the awards, and because we are making some serious allegations, and that could be a basis for setting aside the awards. And if that happens, that's a full reprieve for us. We're out of it. In respect of the case, well, it's a matter of for government to decide how to proceed. If government decides that there's some fraudulent things happened, has been alleged right now, then they could, because there's no limitation to criminal proceedings, they may consider criminal proceedings. They may also maybe consider going after that company for some form of damages, because some cost. Because whatever happens, even in conducting these proceedings, substantial costs are being and expenses being incurred by government. But that is further down the line. For me, the most important thing is to concentrate and get us out of this logjam that we're in right now. Yes.
And so when we return, you tell us, how do we get out of this economic logjam that we are in at the moment? That's when we return. Please stay with us. All right, let's talk about the economy. We've seen the recent increase in electricity tariff. We've seen that of the fuel price hike, and then the several tax increase, well, at least the 7.5% one. And then there's a huge question about the COVID funds getting to the SMEs and the private sector. I mean, some years ago, you did talk about how the economy, the informal sector, the private, which is about 85%, you were making some recommendations as to how to organize that sector. So tell us, haven't seen what is playing out economically now. What do you suggest that we do, either policy directive to ensure that at least the SMEs, which is a very important factor in an economy, doesn't take the hit as much in all of this?
First of all, the economy all over the world was already going down even before the COVID. Now we're all taking a heavy hit from it, and the pandemic has turned out to be an economic pandemic. Whether or not you get infected with the virus, you will find out that we're all going to be impacted negatively. What do? It's just a matter of, first of all, from my point of view, tweaking the policies that government has already put in place. If you check out today, there are several billions of naira already made available by CBN to fund certain aspects of the SME space in terms of agriculture, mining, doing businesses. They're going to gas and a lot of other things. But the process of delivering those funds to the SMEs is where the challenge is. And immediately the CBN made available the 50 billion COVID SME funding sometime, I think that was about April. I actually personally wrote to the president, President Buhari, about this. And within 48 hours, he directed the CBN to do certain things, to talk to the organized private sector, to talk to us. And they did. And the whole idea was that, look, we cannot use commercial banks' conditionalities to dispense and disburse this funding to the SMEs. We need to have, one, transparency in terms of the way it is disbursed. Two, we need to ensure that these monies get to those that really need it. And we suggested to CBN through the NASA Microfinance Bank that let the organized private sector guarantee their members. And there are quite a number of them. You have NASIMA, you have all the 36 or 40 chambers of commerce, you have NASI, you have NASME. These are well-recognized bodies. But it was a tug of war for CBN for NASA especially, to really understand what we're talking about and to implement it. So today, that fund, the disbursement of that fund is grey. There's no clarity. And I really want to use this platform actually to challenge them to show to the public and to the government how those funds were disbursed. So the process of disbursement is a challenge. Even when government makes money available, it is very, very doubtful where this money gets to the people that needed it. That is one. So the process. The second thing is that we need to place the new fiscal regimes that are coming out, that is the tax and the charges, and all that. We need to put some form of moratorium on it. Now is the time to support businesses, to allow them to stabilize and to grow. Many companies are not operating, and those who are operating at half or less than half capacity. This has to happen. Farmers are not getting, farmers are not getting the right input, and they're not actually farming because of restriction of movement, because of the access to basic things they need. And to make matters worse, in some parts of the country, especially in the north, there's excess rain this year, so there's a lot of flooding. This will affect agricultural output, which also affects part of the value chain. In some parts of the southwest, there's no rain, so that's also indirectly be devastating to impact on agro output, and this will affect everything. You can see, for instance, that there's a huge contraction in the economy. Quarter one, quarter two, if you look at the figures, about 27% contraction, and we cannot expect quarter three to be better, or quarter four. So we're almost on the verge of another recession, and this will be added to the COVID. It's going to be huge, very, very negative. So government should review the process of engaging with the SMEs. The monies made available must be disbursed in the way that ensure that the people that really need it get it, and also ensure that these monies can come back, so it becomes a revolving fund. They should just not be funds that come and disappear into thin air. You must give it to people, the companies and individuals that are doing business in a way that they can be able to, with time, also refund this money so others can have access to it.
Okay,
so
if I can refer to...
That is a big challenge now.
Right. If I can refer to the first point you made about disbursement of the COVID funds. Now, you said that you had a meeting, really, with a representative of a CBN, and you said it was quite problematic. You said it was a tug of war and that it was grace. Just specifically regarding SMEs, are you saying that SMEs didn't quite get the funds as they should have? And I know you've talked about the challenges SMEs are facing at this time. You've said, some factories have had to close down. A lot of people are struggling, really. What is the current state of SMEs, at least under your purview?
Well, the challenge is real, and we all know that when with what has happened now, the small businesses will suffer more than every other person, and this is why these funds, I believe, were were made available. Now, we say that the process of disbursement is grey. I mean, it is not clear, it is not transparent, and we are challenging the Nassau Microfinance Bank that disbursed this in spite of directive from the government and from the CBN to work with the private sector, which they failed to do. They refused flatly to do it. They refused flatly. So I've thrown down the gauntlet on this point. This is what happened. And going forward, we should change the process of this. Work with the organized private sector so you can be sure exactly who got this funding, and also be sure that these funds can come back as a revolving fund so others can gain from it. You know, this is a key challenge, because if the funds come, it could be easy for people to re-energize their business, to try and get back on their feet. And this look, if the impact is going to be worse from the fourth quarter, you begin to see it. You know, it's going to be a lot of problems, and so not only that the funds that have been made available has not been properly disbursed, additional funds is needed. But I wouldn't even want to talk about additional funds when even the ones that have been made available has not been properly disbursed. So that is the main point that I can see. The other issue is really that the support, the fiscal support in terms of reduction, or let there be a moratorium about demanding charges, demanding government fees, and all those things that put pressure on the SMEs. You know.
Well, you talked about process the other time, and it's quite interesting how that comes to play, because process here would probably also speak again to government officials who have to disburse the funds, or at least execute the policies of governments from one administration to the other. Now, someone has said that sometimes the inefficiency of the civil service is because of political influence. Sometimes government appointees coming with their own staff, personal staff, senior advisors, special advisors, and special assistants, and all of that, and the one way or the other get in the way of the process. If you think there is any value to this, how do we navigate this in order to make the process, the system, tighter and more effective, and be able to deliver better results?
Well, I do agree that could be across the board, there could be interference here and there. But what we're saying is this: we cannot continue to do the same thing the same way every time and expect a different result. On this specific issue of what do we do for the SMEs, how do we reinvigorate our economy in this global economic pandemic that we have suggested that instead of using a bank, for instance, a microfinance bank like Nassau, for instance, to disburse money for the whole of the country, for the whole of Nigeria. We are talking of more than 40, 50 million SMEs. Why not use their structure, the structure that already exists, a new way to do things, to make it better, to deliver? Use the chambers of commerce, use the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, use the Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, use the Association of Traders. These are recognized, registered bodies that you can use to reach out to a lot of people easily. Use the Association of Farmers, cassava growers, and use those bodies, rather than you sit there in just one office and you are now disbursing funds throughout the country. How do you have that at the needed level of transparency? And I do not think this is a political thing. Actually, at least I must say it clearly, as I said, we wrote to the president, and within 48 hours, he has gotten the CBN to talk to us. And the CBN agreed, oh, don't worry, just give guarantee to your members, then this can be done. So there'll be transparency, there'll be impact, there will be effect, and also the possibility of making these funds revolving. But the Nassau Microfinance absolutely refused to do that.
Now, I mean, looking at the economic
and
indices.
let me tell you, I believe that if we could achieve this, we could also become part of the process and a better and more efficient process of government engaging with the private sector and with the SMEs.
Okay, speaking of government,
engine of economic growth.
Right, speaking of government, I mean, government is at different levels. Now, looking at the economic indices, Nigeria's economy shrank by 6.1% in Q2. But when you look at capital inflow, really, you see that only 6 states really got inflow into the country. The $1.29 billion that was, the figure that was released by the MBS, only 6 states. So we have Abuja, Lagos, and 4 other states. And we have 36 states in the country. So government at the state level also, they obviously have a lot of work to do regarding this. If they can't attract capital inflow, you wonder, what is the point then?
Well, you see, the issue of attracting foreign capital inflow is, for me, in a way, is like an elitist thing. You understand? There are some states that hardly ever attract such inflows, and if there are inflows, it will be local, because there's some, because the states are in different levels of stages of development. Some states are purely agrarian, and what they just want to do is to be able to take care of the farmers and the SMEs in the states. Okay, so it's not all of them. Very few states really are doing big business in terms of attracting foreign direct investment in that sense of the word. But if we have some funding, little funding coming to SMEs, if you aggregate it, it becomes part of inflow in a way, and also part of engine for growth, of to get things to begin to move positively. So it is not really, for me, in the circumstance in which we have found ourselves, really necessarily negative that some states are not attracting foreign inflow, because it's not every state that can do that. That we can divide Nigerian states into at least 3 groups. The first group is just maybe the 6 states you have mentioned, Lagos, maybe Kano, Port Harcourt, and so on. But there are some rural states, there are some states that are purely agrarian, and there are SME states purely, and not much is going on. Even though it is still, again, possible to get some things happening. For instance, last week, the governor of Ekiti State visited NEBSA. Now, Ekiti is one of the agrarian states that there's really no serious industries and so on. But the governor visited NEBSA and wanted to establish a special economic zone in areas that will enable him to bring knowledge and agriculture into play. So, you see, gradually you're building up something from the bottom, and that could lay the foundation for you to be able to attract serious investment. So it's a matter of, again, working with the private sector to see what to do. Let me give you an example. Take a state like Yobe or Bauchi. These are states that could do a lot in livestock, and livestock is big business. Okay, we lay the foundation, work with the private sector, put in the framework. I'm not saying you spend the money because you don't have it, but I agree that, look, we'll designate 2,000 hectares of land for livestock development, the livestock value chain. Just put it there. Talk to the private sector. You can then find out that there'll be inflows of investment into that sector. But you just fold your arms, cross your legs, and hope that you get some inflow. It's not going to happen, especially now that there's scarcity of funds all over the world. The economy of the world is contracting. Even the countries that have these funds are also having their own challenges. But whatever happens, some things, life continues and the economy must continue to move. So
all right,
whatever it is our strength.
Okay. Let's wind down with this then, taking you back to the P&ID. I know you spoke a lot about us domesticating arbitration here, but there are many who will wonder, is it really about us domesticating arbitration, or is it about the attitude of governments to submission to judgments that may have come from judiciary, especially when you hear governments talk about judiciary being the problem? So do you think that foreign companies trust a judicial proceedings or process enough to submit to those proceedings if you were to domesticate some of them here?
But Chamberlain, the point I'm making is this. there's litigation and there's arbitration. Arbitration being an aspect of ADR. When parties have an agreement, they decide whether they should use the courts or they will use some form of ad hoc or institutional arrangement. It could be mediation, it could be conciliation, it could be arbitration. So whatever you have agreed in your contract, my point is that essentially we should always insist that we want the arbitration done here, unless there's a dispensation by the Attorney General, if it's government. What I'm saying is that it should not be a matter of course that arbitrations must take place outside Nigeria. Look, some years back, I was involved in an arbitration where all the parties are Nigerians, Nigerian government, agencies, Nigerian companies, and they put arbitration in London. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Nobody does things like that. So that is one. Two, as I said, trusting our courts has nothing to do with the point I'm making. Whether you trust our courts or you don't trust our courts, so far you are fixed that you are going to do ADR, you can still do it here. Now, but as I said, again, things are beginning to change because now we are doing arbitration online. So the cost of going to London and all this may also not be a serious problem anymore. You can sit down here and do your arbitration, whether it's fixed in London or anywhere online. But the second issue is taking proceedings more seriously. When you have either a case in court or in arbitration, government agencies must be very, very serious about it, because it's not casual, because it will have serious implications if you don't take it seriously.
All right, then that's a fine place to let it go. Prince Adetokunbo Bakaide, CON, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and former Minister of Defense as well. Thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right, then. Welcome back. Well, we're turning our attention to protests. Well, to tell us about what this protest is about, we've got Comrade William Sakwaraha, who is the president of NUPENG. He joins us from Port Harcourt. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We just heard the Attorney General of Rivers State speaking about certain matters being in court and why they don't think that it is right for the NLC to proceed on the planned protest. So in that context, in consideration of that perspective, what is NLC NUPENG going to do tomorrow? Are they proceeding with the plan?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Actually, there is also a response from the President, Nigeria Labour Congress, on that position from the Attorney General of Rivers State, where the National President of Nigeria Labour Congress made it clear that they are not aware of any court injunction as headquarters and as leadership. But I would also state here too that NUPENG is one of the affiliates of Nigeria Labour Congress, and ours is just to carry out the decision of the leadership of Nigeria Labour Congress. So far, as an affiliate, what we've done is also to mobilize our members and ensure too that in obedience to the directive, we carry out our own part. The strike, or rather mass protest, which is a peaceful one, is meant to bring to the attention of the state government of Rivers and their terror and authoritarian stand of the governor over labor issues in that state. And our role is to give solidarity, and that is why we've called on all our members in Rivers to come out on that peaceful protest, on Tuesday, 8th of September.
All right, so first of all, that strike is not nationwide, because there are people who are circulating all sorts of messages thinking that NUPENG is embarking on a national strike.
In fact, that is not true. The NUPENG has not given any notice to go on a nationwide strike. We are only involved on the solidarity, peaceful mass protest in Rivers State. And that is our mandate for now.
When the NLC president says they are not aware as national headquarters, does that also mean that the state chapter of the union is not on notice about that court judgment? Is that what they're saying?
Well, I'm surprised you don't even have that that recount too, because it was also it was voiced, and most media also have it. So I thought when you play the one of Attorney General, we were also going to play the one of the NSC president. He made himself clear that the laws are very clear on peaceful protest. That is not sure there's any court of law that will stop workers not to go on peaceful protest. So I think that's where we stand for now. The peaceful mass protests, we go ahead, and we call all our members, both in the downstream and upstream, especially in the depot areas, filling station workers, to all come out en masse to join in solidarity to save River State workers.
Right. So is this a protest or a strike? Because you've used consistently the term protest. So is this just a protest?
Well,
work will not be disrupted,
so
or is it a strike?
At this level, it's still a peaceful mass protest. It's a rally, and of course, in a industrial election, parliament is still an action. Mass rallies are also actions. So obviously, it's also an industrial action because it's also a protest. But I want to say this is a peaceful mass protest, just to go and establish our disagreement, grievances on how the governor is handling issue of River State workers.
Right.
And that is for now, that's the mandate that we're given by the leadership of Nigeria Congress, and we'll stop at that.
Okay. All right, comrade, we'll go to break and come back to this in just a moment. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. So, Ayo, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us. Mr. Akwera, some would be wondering what the background to all of this is. Well, a number of people might be aware, but some would be wondering, okay, so you just want to jump straight from whatever your grievances are, straight to protest. Has there been any interface with the government of Rivers State before we got to this point in the first place? Because many people will believe, as far as labor is concerned, it always has to be a luta continua. So, what are the things that have been done about what are the issues and what are the things that have been done before we got to this place?
Well, at this point, I think the issues are numerous, ranging from non-implementation of minimum wage in Rivers, non-payment of pensioners, for several years, the sealing up of NLC secretariat in Rivers State, for the past 6 months. And I would also put it on record here that the headquarters has also been in touch with the governor. Several appeals have been made to him that the path is treading is not good for a harmonious industrial relationship. But all that seems to have failed on deaf ears. And as union too, once all those efforts fail, the next thing is to cry out. So I think that is the basic of what the protest is all about.
Is that going to be protest for any other states that doesn't pay the minimum wage?
Of course, it's going to go around. That was the resolution of the leadership. That any state that have refused to pay minimum wage, of course, we will also have this kind of mass protest. But however, the case of Rivers have become, very serious because of the anti-labor stand of the governor. It has also gone about harassing labor leaders in the state. No labor leader seems to be safe. Everybody is operating from underground as we speak, and we felt, well, this is democracy, and if any governor is backing on dictatorship against the labor movement, that should not be accepted. So that is why today everybody is coming to Rivers State to ensure that there is a mass peaceful protest against the stand of the governor on labor.
Is there going to be a mass peaceful protest about the recent fuel price hike and electricity tariff?
Well, the leadership of NLC has not directed that for now. We will wait on such directives are given.
Okay, but I'm sure you must have heard, some comments from Nigerians as well. So, but I mean, from your perspective as a union leader, do you think that there should be about the fuel price hike since, you're in that sector?
I think NLC has also spoken on this matter. Like I said earlier, we're part of Nigeria Congress, and they made a statement, and NUPENG as an affiliate also stands, by that statement.
Okay, but just to see, we didn't see any, we're not in receipt of some of those statements, so if we do get them, by all means, we'll let the public know as well. But we do thank you for talking to us today, and we reached out to the Commissioner for Information, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. So, Comrade William Sakwaha, President of NUPENG, thank you for talking to us this morning.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, and now there was this letter that made the rounds over the weekend, perhaps previously, said to have been signed by Customs, and so a lot of people saw this letter. As you can see there, the heading of that letter, Intelligence on National Security, and signed by H.A. Sambo, Controller, Enforcement, HQ, for Deputy Controller General. It was dated August 20 and then signed on the 4th of September 2020 as well. So, but thereafter, after the letter made the rounds, it was trying to inform the Controller General. It says information reaching the Controller General of Customs reveals the existence of Boko Haram terrorist camps, BHTs, in and around the FCT. And then the second part says, further reports have it that they are planning to attack some selected targets within the territory. They are reported to have set up their camps in the following identified enclaves: Kunyam Bush along Airport Road off DIA Staff Headquarters, Abuja; Robochi, Gwagwalada Forest; Kwaku Forest, Kuje, Abuja; Uniasha Forest in Toto Local Government of Nasarawa State; Gegu Forest close to Idu Town in Kogi State. And consequently, you are to be at alert and security conscious of your environment at all times. Ensure wide circulation, please. Well, thereafter, the Army, DHQ, Defense spokesperson, responded. And yesterday, the statement that was put out indicated their response and what they were going to do. Okay, perhaps we couldn't bring you what the Army did respond, but yes, they have said that they're going to ensure that that doesn't happen. But then earlier today, in some of the dailies, if you did catch some of them, Customs were saying that they're going to investigate that letter. So it raises a lot of questions concerning what's going on. What do you think is playing out? Well, we'll have someone who is in the security circle to shed some light on some of these matters. Mr. Dennis Amakri, former Assistant Director with the SSS. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Now, having seen this letter from Customs and the response from the Army, and then the Customs saying we're going to probe this letter, what do you think is playing out here?
This is really tiring, you know. This letter itself, I think, is not what the paper on which it is written on, you know. I think it's just a fluke. I tried to reach out to some of my contacts to find out who actually signed that letter. I was not able to reach them. But when you look at it, the letter itself, there are a lot of things wrong there. You know, it was not addressed to anybody. It was meant for internal circulation. And the list of people to be circulated to was not there. Maybe on the next page, I don't know. But when it's not there, it's not there. So number one, the heading is different from the body. The heading says Intelligence on National Security. that's not an intelligence, and that's not how intelligence reports are addressed or disseminated. Well, in the first paragraph, he said it's an information, which is okay. Yes, it might be an information, but you know, we have to differentiate between information and intelligence. Intelligence is a processed information. But this particular one is saying it's an intelligence report on national security. At the same time, saying that it is information which is contradictory. But when you look at the body of the letter, you find out that actually they mention some places. That tells you that it is not actually processed, because if it is processed, those areas will be, should be confidential information that is not supposed to be on a letter distributed to everybody who might even be to Boko Haram itself.
So we can't assume that customs have their own unique way of putting up such intelligence, different from maybe while you were in service, and that's perhaps the DMI, the Army, and the likes.
The channels are very clear. If customs has any kind of information around the border or any other place at all, they know where to channel it to. And they would have channeled it to the DSS directly, and then of course they will process it by trying to find out the veracity of those locations before you start spreading it to everybody.
Well,
but go ahead, please.
Just one moment. In the light of this letter, well, of course, even though you said it's a fluke, some people say there is no smoke without fire. But looking at the substance, if any, of this content, is it within the place of the DSS, the NCS Customs Service, to deal with such an issue as this, or is it out of their purview?
Well, that's what I mean. If they received information like this, they have to take it to the appropriate, because I don't know if the enforcement and intelligence unit of the custom is well equipped, to write on national security. They should have sent it to the appropriate. That's why we're saying that these security agencies should be synergizing. They should have sent it to the SSS. The SSS will know how to process it appropriately, and then, of course, act on it. And then, of course, there's important thing there. Whether the letter was of no value or not, I think it's of a very serious value. And that value is that it's a dot in the events of things. Even the SSS will not throw it away, because they have to go in and actually look at it. Like you said, there is no smoke without fire. So I think it calls for further investigations.
Now, for this kind of information to have gone out and signed by someone, and you say it's wrongly channeled, does that suggest some lapses in the system that need correcting, or is just one of those things that should be swept under the carpet?
It's a serious lapse. And then I think the security agencies, Immigration, Customs, and NSCDC, all of them, the SSS itself, Army, should synergize and know how to manage security information.
Okay, now, this is really interesting. You talked about the need for synergy the other time, and this is a matter that's been talked about over and over again. The president has said it a number of times. Even the NSA has also mentioned this. For this to go out again, it would then suggest that maybe what the words of Mr. President aren't being taken seriously, and national security isn't given its due regard. Would you agree with those who think that?
I think there need to be review, and the National Security Advisor is in place to do that, because we still believe strongly that the Office of the National Security Advisor is supposed to be the clearinghouse for intelligence. And the President has given out his direction, and then from that direction, all the agencies should move appropriately in making sure that intelligence or information like this are usually channeled properly. Because the essence of this letter now, I don't know whether it's mischievously done to cause panic in the society.
But you know, when some of them, I mean, the customs spokesperson is quoted to have said, look, that information was not meant for public consumption. And as such, perhaps if he hadn't, well, do we use the word leaked now in context of his own response, we may not have been discussing that subject matter today. So
Exactly.
if it were not meant for public consumption and it was leaked and, I mean, if it didn't leak and it was circulated among security agencies, would anything have been wrong with it, the way the letter came through?
Yeah, because when you look at, like I told you, that letter is not what the paper on which it is written. The customs spokesman should go back to security school and learn.
Ouch.
You know, because
Shots
when he say that it is not meant for public consumption, that letter was not classified. Usually, letters are classified in security circles. Either it's confidential, it's restricted, is secret or top secret. And now that letter, there is no markings of any kind of classification on it. So how can he say that it's not meant for public consumption? In fact, it is open. That means it is for public.
So if you say that this letter, I mean, what you said a little earlier, when you say that, you know, the letter was probably released to cause panic, and the various agencies of government are supposed to be doing their jobs, you know, the police, the DSS, the customs. I asked the question the other time if it was in the place of the customs to do this. So if this letter was released, as you said, to cause panic, who should have stepped in?
Well, like the necessary agents have already moved in. The army has come out to say that everybody should calm down. They are going to investigate. The DSS is actually also looking at it. So the appropriate agencies will look at it. But for the customs, I think they have to do some house cleaning to make sure if this letter was actually properly, officially released, who it was released to, why is there no classification of that letter? You know, these are things that they have to look at.
What if it was at the early stage, before it got to the classifications mapping stage, and then somebody just, you know, the letter got out?
Then there's mischievous, somebody's mischievous in there. And at least they have to start hunting for a mole in their office.
It's not the first time memos will leak, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So memos have leaked previously. Even classified memos have leaked.
Yes, that's why they need to all go back to school and learn how to protect official information.
Leading to the issue of electronic documents.
Yes.
When we talk about security, we talk about security in terms of carrying guns, giving information and all of that.
That's just
well, to a large extent, that's what many people think. But
yes.
Now, as far as this is concerned, this is an electronic document leaked. Is there any way or anything we need to do differently when it comes to protecting electronic documents? Or
yes, of
security
course.
In the
yes, of course.
space?
There are classifications. And, you know, for physical documents, you can either stamp them to show this restricted, this confidential and stuff like that. Electronic documents, you know, also have their own classification where access, you know, that will be on the level of access that it will have. So if it is not for public consumption, certain people are not going to see them, you know, and only those who are classified to see it will see it.
You know, listening to the reactions of a lot of Nigerians, and even some of the ones you have put this morning, it might discourage the Nigeria customs from playing an active role, really, in this fight, because, I mean, the government says time and again that security is everyone's responsibility. And if you look at the functions of the NCS, you see that it includes, and it's not limited to anti-smuggling activities and security functions. So we need the NCS, really, in this fight, this insecurity fight. So don't you think this might discourage them, hearing the response from people?
No, it's not going to discourage them. You know, trying to do things right does not mean that you are being discouraged. You know, so if there is some elements in the custom trying to be mischievous, I think their head, who is even a former military man, should know. You know, how do you send out a letter that is not classified, you know, and you say they should distribute it? Or was it sent out before the classification stage? You know, these are all things that they have to investigate and continue doing the good job they are doing. It's not something for them to be discouraged about.
So you think that the means, the process has tainted the purpose, which I think there might also be a danger of, looking away from, because clearly there's a security threat. In fact, the DHQ has said, well, we're looking at this purported letter, people should go about their duties, we're doing our job. But don't you think that that might also taint the purpose of this?
Well, the thing is that, like I said, this particular letter cannot just be discarded. It's a dot, like we call in security circles. It's a dot that needs to be connected to something else. And then, of course, it's not too far-fetched where they say that there are elements of either bandits or Boko Haram hanging around or infiltrating certain areas. But it brings more work for the security people to do now, where they have to investigate and see whether they will make meaning out of it.
How do you suggest residents of those areas connect the dots in this case? Because they've seen this and they will think, oh, wait a minute. Well, yes, the army may have put up a notice, but I'm going to be cautious as well.
Yes, they need to be cautious, and then they need to also open their eyes and say, look, they said something is happening around here. Maybe we should look around, and then if there is actually something there, then we inform the security agencies about it.
But will the statement from the army suffice?
Of course, they are saying that everybody should keep calm, which is true. We don't want panic.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they are going to investigate it.
But in the meantime, if residents don't see boots on the ground, are they going to rely on press statement they saw? Some may not have even seen it.
Well, there are many ways of verifying information like that. You don't put boots down there and start looking around those neighborhoods that were mentioned there. People will start to even panic more.
But you know the way they say the show of force. When they do the show of force, and then to show people, okay, well, what's wrong with that principle as well?
No,
applying
that
in this
principle
case?
Actually does not work very well.
Not even show of confidence.
Yeah, because it could pass, and then, of course, the people will continue doing what they want to do.
Okay. All right. So we're hoping that at least it will just be something that they'll just dismiss with a wave of hand and not any reason to panic, as the army has said that they will go ahead and protect the people. But we do thank you for your time and your thoughts this morning. Mr. Dennis Omakere, former Assistant Director with the SSS.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so let's get some feedback coming through now. Which ones do you have first?
Well, let's begin with this one. I think it's from IBME. It says the challenges being faced by Nigeria in terms of entering into foreign contracts and other engagements arose from non-involvement of civil servants in most cases, as honorable ministers with their essays do things by bypassing the line service, civil service. On the exit of such ministers and his essays, everything goes with them. To arrest the trend, government insisted that political office holders should appoint their essays in-house, but obey in breach through appointments of essay technical.
Well, Henry says, if NLC is protesting against a state government with visible evidence of performance, what will they do in some other states with zero evidence of development and absence of hope for improvement? I smell a rat.
Okay, Oshinawa Kingsley speaking about that letter. And he says, either the letter is genuine or not, it's better we take appropriate actions to prevent such occurrence. The level of insecurity in Nigeria is getting worse and has further been heightened by increasing level of poverty, he says.
Professor Enakena says we must make efforts to fix power, which reduces the cost of production and cost of goods. Invest in SMEs, diversify the economy, reduce interest rates to single digits, tackle corruption, and cut recurrent expenditures, increase investment in capital expenditure.
Well, look at the maker says, NLC and NUPENG should not deceive us. Let the strike be the one that will benefit the masses, not the ones back in the days of corrupt NLC chairmen who will make noise for strikes and allegedly go back in the night to collect envelopes.
Well, but Don Joshua talks about that P&ID discussion we had earlier, saying on the P&ID case, glad Nigeria is given a lifeline to fair hearing, but if we must tell ourselves the truth, if in the end we come out victorious, those that were at the forefront, or he says the front burner rather, of the contract should be made to face the full wrath of the law for negligence.
Well, this one is from Moses. Says we should learn to hear from both sides. Customs should not be blamed if trust is not found within the security agencies. They are in a good position to protect and classify security threats.
Okay, so there you go. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.